ways of being successful, of being impressive, of fitting in. This work is regular, it's ongoing, it's like a spiritual practice. I can't meditate one time and say, okay, I have a meditation practice. I actually need to do it on a regular basis. And it's the same thing with anti-racism and liberation. It's like a spiritual practice. You can't just do it one time and say, check, done that, right? You need to return to it over and over. So Tema Okun has written a brilliant analysis of how white supremacy culture shows up in organizations. If you Google white supremacy culture, that phrase, her PDF is the first thing that comes up. And I recommend this to all of you, whether you identify as a white person or a person of color. I invite you to join me in the courageous work of looking at the ways that we participate in the status quo. Personal growth and development takes courage. Staying awake and out of your comfort zone takes courage. And believe me, this past year, all I've wanted to do is watch reality TV. Competitions about cupcakes and cooking and singing and sewing. I love Project Runway. But even though I have the impulse to numb, I also have the commitment to grow. Not just for myself, but also for my children and for the children of my children. For the beloved community that we keep talking about. For the Unitarian Universalism that could be, but is not yet here. I can't do this work alone. I need a community to do it. Some of the work I need to do with my colleagues of color, with other immigrants, with folks who can help me see my patterns when I can't see them yet myself. And some of the work we need to do in our congregations and in our larger denomination. We need to circle round with each other to do this work. So in a minute, we're going to sing Circle Round, which is hymn 155 in the Gray Hymnal. Take a minute to find that, please. We're going to sing it 3 times together. But first, I invite you to join me in another prayer. Queridísima Diosa, beloved Goddess, hear this, my prayer. Strengthen this circle of beloveds, please, and help us lovingly see ourselves. Help us see where our patterns no longer serve us. Help us to challenge the status quo by challenging ourselves. Help us see our opportunities for growth and development with clarity and without guilt or judgment, but bathed in your unconditional love. Bendita seas. Amen. for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Thank you. The third story I want to tell you today is not about me or my family, it's about you, the Universalist Unitarian Church of East Liberty. It's a story that is still in the making, it's still in the telling, and I'm hoping to plant some seeds to inspire you to continue to write your story in a particular direction. Before I tell you this story, I want to tell you about the blank order of service. We have arrived to the explanation. I wanted you to have a lived, embodied experience of the discomfort that immigrants feel when they come to a new country. Because everything is new. Everything is different. The way that things are done back home and the way that things are done here are completely different. It doesn't make sense. Or it could also be the experience of a sanctuary guest, right? When someone goes into sanctuary, everything is out of their control. And the future is completely unclear. So I wanted you to have a moment of that so that you knew what I was talking about as I addressed this issue. Because it's such a human thing. We all so desperately want to know what is happening. What is happening right now and what's going to happen next. That's normal. That's absolutely how we function as humans. And it's really disconcerting when we don't have that. So this need to know what's going to happen has been described by Dr. Sharon Welch as an ethic of control. So here's the definition of the ethic of control, which I'm going to read a couple times and then I'm going to explain it how I understand it. Sharon Welch says that an ethic of control is a construction of agency, responsibility, and goodness, which assumes that it is possible to guarantee the efficacy of one's actions. I'm going to say that again. An ethic of control is a construction of agency, responsibility, and goodness. So what we say is good assumes that it is possible to guarantee the efficacy of one's actions. What is good depends on and is guaranteed by how effective we can be. So we need to control things in order to be good. That is what the ethic of control teaches. How can you control yourself if you don't know what the order of things is? If you don't know what happens next? How can you have control if you don't know what's happening? You can't. You have to manage it in a different way, and you have to lean into something else. In this case, with the order of service, you had to trust me. You had to say, okay, well, she says she knows what she's doing, so I'm going to stay here and do what she says. So you gave me some of that control, right? The opposite and the antidote to an ethic of control is what Sharon Welch calls an ethic of risk. So the ethic of risk has three elements: a redefinition of responsible action, grounding in community, and strategic risk-taking. So we don't assume that we can control everything. We define responsible action differently. We ground it in community, so it's no longer I'm in charge, I'm going to manage this, I got this, but we've got this, we're going to be okay. We are co-owners, right? And then thirdly, strategic risk-taking. So our African-American siblings, was where Sharon Welch developed this theory from. She studied African-American female writers, and she says what they teach us is that because racism is a problem for generations, you have to take strategic risks. You have to know when to step up and when to just hang in, right? So it can't be all the time. We can't control it, we can't change it, but if we're strategic about our risk-taking, we can, in fact, make change. So when we redefine how we do social change and when we center it in community, that's how we can challenge the status quo. Bless you. So why do we need an ethic of risk? What do we gain? Well, an ethic of risk is what you need if you're going to live up to the sign that you have up front. If you truly believe that Black Lives Matter and that no human is illegal and that love is love and that women's rights are human rights and science is real and water is life and injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, which is what your sign says, then you need to engage that in your actions in the community and in your congregational practices. And you know that. But how, right? How do you actually take that next step? So Reverend Cindy explained to me when I talked to her that you don't have a social justice committee, but that instead you engage with a social justice topic every year at all levels of the church. That's great. That's really smart, because then it's not a few of you holding that basket, but you're all holding it together. She also told me when I asked her more questions that most of the community work that happens is because she has made personal connections and she represents the church in a variety of community settings. That's also great, and you're lucky to have Reverend Cindy. I really love Cindy. But it's not enough. And it's not enough. You need multiple points of connection. And if you rely on Reverend Cindy to be your connector for everything, it's going to limit your capacity as a church to really make a difference. You need to take more risks, both in this congregation and beyond these walls. So the ethic of risk, the culture of speaking truth to power, is the how. It's how you get there. When you engage in communal risk-taking, you are decentering white supremacy culture. You are practicing what you preach. Like when you notice that the status quo is doing the thing the status quo does, and you decide to speak up against it. Like when you serve on the board and you recognize that a decision is being made out of scarcity or fear, and you challenge that, you say it out loud, and you speak a new possibility into being. Or when you're at a meeting here in church and you recognize that the group is suffering from an attack of perfectionism, which is one of the characteristics of white supremacy culture, and you say something, you say, hey, it feels a little tight, feels like we don't want to be this one way. Let's find a different way, let's relax a little bit. Or it's when you say out loud, hey, it's great to have a sign up front, but we could be doing more. We could be getting involved in the sanctuary movement. We could deepen and grow our relationships to the folks of color, leading justice work near us. I have a vision of Unitarian Universalists across the country rising strong, narrowing the gap between what we say and what we do. Because we know what's right, and we know what we believe in. Now we just need to unleash our communal capacity to bring justice to the world. We need to learn to take bigger risks together, even when we face uncertainty, even when the path is not clear, even when there isn't an order of service to tell us what's going to happen next. I think we can do this together, and I hope you believe it too. Our final hymn is Come and Go With Me, which is 1018 in the Teal hymnal. I invite you to find that now. And let's have one more prayer. In the name of all that we hold dear and holy, we take this moment of silence to recommit our hearts to this congregation and to our work. We remember that we are stronger together. We lean into the discomfort of not knowing what will happen next. We commit to an ethic of risk, to a willingness to learn and change and grow together.